Coming up in this Fincast, we'll take a look at a brand new planted aquarium using the new Aquasolum substrate from Seachem.
I raise angelfish, the largest producer of angels in the United States. I feed Xtreme feed because I get better production off my breeders, a better survival rate off my babies, and overall the feed tends to be cleaner and doesn't foul my vats as much, and it's just a better feed.
Hi everybody, John here with another Fincast, and today we'll be doing part 2 of my series on this particular aquarium right here. The whole aquarium is based around a new substrate from Seachem called Aquasolum, and we detailed that in part 1 extensively. So if you want to learn more about this pelletized substrate from Seachem in part 1, please go back and look at that on the YouTube channel. It's designed for to create soft acidic water, which is perfect for plants, for freshwater shrimp. You can see one right there, and also for fish that tend to love water more in the acid range. But part 2 is going to be all about the plants. I'll take you step by step, show you each plant that I put in here, tell you a little bit about why I chose it, specifically in terms of the aquascape, and also how it compares to what I'm trying to accomplish by creating a shrimp aquarium. The 20,000-foot view, if you will, the philosophy that goes into this aquarium is, since it's primarily going to be about the shrimp and not the plants are there to serve the shrimp. So I'm not looking for super vigorous growth. I'm not looking to do the greatest planted aquarium of all time. What I'm trying to do is create an environment that's perfect for the freshwater shrimp. So I chose plants that don't need a lot of care, that are considered moderate or easy, that don't require a lot of light, because a lot of light will equal algae. And I'm also looking to possibly do the entire aquarium without the injection of CO2 and with as few fertilizers as possible. Now, I'll tell you, there's a lot of debate on the internet about how fertilizers and shrimp get along with one another, and there's a lot of discussion that suggests that the freshwater shrimp do not like fertilizers. Now, obviously, anytime you're talking about invertebrates, you can't use anything with copper in it, and that's beyond debate. That's just known. If you put copper in this aquarium, it's going to kill the shrimp. So the question then becomes, well, what other fertilizers can we use? And for this aquarium, we're going to start out, since Aquasolum is a new product and because I do have good lighting and good filtration, we're going to use 0 fertilizers and just see how the plants do. By the way, the lighting on this aquarium is an LED light. This comes from Aquatic. I've actually got a couple of these, and I've used them on my other aquarium for plants, and a single LED light does very well. Now, this is a high output LED, and it is designed for planted aquariums, so that'll be the light that we use on this tank. So now it's time to go plant by plant. We'll show you what I put in the aquarium, show you why I put it where I put it, and why I chose it with respect to the shrimp tank. Okay, we'll start out with Parva, Cryptocoryne, I think is how you say that. If somebody knows, would you put it in comments and tell me the proper pronunciation? I've seen it spelled so many times, but I've never heard anybody say it. So we'll just call it a Parva, and this is a low-growing plant. My idea was that I would create a nice lawn right here between the rocks and in front of my large character rock. And this is an easy-growing plant. It's the smallest of the crypts, and so you can create a lawn with it, and you just put individual plants about 1 inch apart and they will fill in quickly. And so that's pretty much what I did here. The next plant is the Cabomba. The Cabomba is considered hardy. It does require bright light, but I don't want it to grow like crazy, and I have good lights. I wouldn't say I've got super bright lights, but this light should be enough to make this plant happy in this aquarium. This is considered a fast-growing perennial stem plant. Obviously, it can actually be considered a nuisance because it grows so fast in some cases. You do have to prune it pretty regularly. If you're not careful, it'll take over the aquarium. And I put it here because I wanted to create something on the sides and the back of the tank that would sort of frame the area behind the rock, and I'm hoping that it'll grow right up towards the top of the tank and give me a nice wall of green behind the rock on the left-hand side of the tank. The next plant is Bacopa. I thought the Bacopa would look super as a divider between what will eventually be my carpet of green with the crypts and the middle of the aquarium. And when I put the Bacopa in, I was thinking that this would be a shorter plant. It turned out not to be, and so I came back and I trimmed it. And I'll continue to trim it because I really want to see sort of a medium-sized plant right there. I don't want a long, stringy plant right there, and I'm hoping I get a nice carpet of green in the middle third of the tank on the left-hand side. Once again, the Bacopa is considered an easy plant. It's a stem plant. Nothing special required of it, and this should be a good plant, and it should be happy in this fish tank. Next is the gold loidelia, and the gold loidelia is another stem plant, and I put this just in one very specific location, just to the right of center in the fish tank, and this should form a nice sort of gold-colored bush. Right now it looks kind of green, but this should form a nice gold-colored bush, and I wanted it right there on just to the right-hand side of my driftwood in the front of the aquarium. I'll tell you just a little bit more about the gold lodelia here. Gold lodelia is considered a foreground or mid-ground plant. It's a cultivar of the popular aquarium plant known as creeping jenny, and it does have, as I said, a slightly golden color. It does need fairly bright light. Typically, the lighter the leaves, the more light it needs. But again, I'm not looking for it to grow like crazy in this tank. I just want it to survive. If the leaves start falling off and it starts turning brown, I'm either going to have to add a lot of fertilizer or decide to go with a different plant. But at any rate, if this bunches up and forms a nice bush, it'll be perfect for where I have it in the aquarium. This has a nice woody stem and lots of roots. Next is the pink Alternanthera. Now this came in as kind of a surprise because it's a stem plant. It came rooted, bare rooted, and it's supposed to be pink and form nice bright leaves, but obviously these came in green, and I'm not tickled to death with that. I do like the idea of it forming a nice background in the tank, and I would love the contrast that would come if the leaves would become red or pink or purple, but so far that is not the case. I did 3 separate plantings of 3 with each plant about an inch apart, and we'll see what happens. I'll tell you a little bit more about this plant. This particular variety is known as rosifolia. Supposedly it has a bronze color on top of the leaf and deep purple on the underside. As I said, that's not happening here, but it is a nice contrast to the typically green plants in the aquarium. And red aquarium plants can be considered difficult to grow. They require a lot of iron, and they can be more difficult than the green plants. This is considered the easiest, or among the easiest, of the red plants. So we'll see how it goes. The next plant is the Crinium calamistratum. This is a bulb plant, and it's in the background right now, but it supposedly gets very tall, and it's got these really cool crimped leaves, and it is a bulb, and what you do is you put the bulb halfway into the substrate and halfway out. And it's considered, once again, undemanding and a background plant, although in this case it's one of the lower plants, but I put it where hopefully it will grow into its full size and become a beautiful contrast, not only because the leaves are a little bit darker, and it should be between the pink plants if they ever turn pink, but the shape of the leaves and the crimped nature of the leaves will really make a nice contrast between the smooth leaf plants in the front. And I'm also thinking that if these leaves come out and sort of spread out over the driftwood in the front of the tank, it'll be an awesome place for the shrimp to perch and make it easier to see the shrimp in the aquarium. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that was a fairly expensive plant. The one that I bought was considered a large, and it would be about $30 or thereabouts retail. The next plant is the hornwort. This is one of the most common plants that you can put in your aquarium. Lots of different fish will feed on the needles faster than they can regenerate. And this is another plant that is considered easy and undemanding, and also one that can take over your aquarium if you're not careful. But it's inexpensive, and I could get bunches of it. So I put this is actually 2 bunches over on the right-hand side. It fills in nice, hides my filter a little bit, which is nice. And so that is a look at the hornwort. This should be something that all I really have to do is trim it back. Then, of course, the moss balls. The moss balls attract lots of microorganisms that freshwater shrimp love to feed on, and just about any shrimp tank that you see will have mossballs. In fact, lots of the nano aquariums that you see that don't have any other plants have the mossballs. So I put these in here. I've got 5 of them, and all you do is drop them in. Occasionally you need to pick them up and rinse them off. You can actually squeeze them out like a sponge in a bucket if they get too much detritus or algae on them. So we'll see what happens. So far the shrimp have not been paying a great deal of attention to them, but they've only been in the tank for a couple of days, and there have been lots of other things the shrimp have been interested in. But mossballs are definitely a must if you want to do a shrimp tank. The next thing, the last thing we're going to plant is this. This is a mother Anubias Frazeri. Let me show it to you. We'll pull this out. I've never had a plant that had a big pot like this before. Look, oops, well, it came out of the pot. There you can see the pot that it was in. And look at that big beauty right there. It's even got, looks like it was ready to flower. Yeah, that's my baby, the Frazeri Anubias, or Anubias Frazeri. This is an ideal plant for just about any planted aquarium. Anubias are just about bulletproof. So I'm hoping that this one will do very well in here without a lot of care in terms of fertilizers and CO2 and that kind of thing. It's actually kind of a low light plant. I'm almost worried that I've got too much light for it here in this aquarium. So we'll see. This arrived as they call it a mother plant, and as I mentioned, this is very expensive. This is about a $50 plant, and when I started pulling the moss off from around the roots, I actually was able to break it, or by itself broke into 3 separate plants. So I put one on the right side, one on the left, and I took a third one for another aquarium that I have in the house. And this will spread with their rhizomes. Once again, this aquarium is all about the new product from Seachem, the Aquasolum hummate, which is the pelletized substrate. And as I told you in part 1, it's sort of light and fluffy, and the roots should spread very easily in plants that propagate by spreading roots, and this Frazeri, Anubias Frazeri, is one of those. Once again, when you plant an Anubias, you don't want to put its rhizome down into the soil, so I left a lot of the roots sticking out. And Anubias are beautiful because you can attach them to rocks, you can attach them to driftwood, and they do very well. But obviously with a big beautiful plant like this, I wanted to use it in a corner to sort of define the tank. I probably will come back with some additional variety of Anubias on the driftwood in the front of the tank, because it's so easy to just attach it with the rubber band until the roots take hold of the driftwood, and you take the rubber band off and you're good to go. And I just love the way that looks. So this aquarium has been planted for 3 days as I speak to you right now. So it's brand new. I always love the look of a brand new planted tank because there's no detritus and everything is new and fresh. It does look much better now than it did when I first planted it, because the plants have come out of the bag and they're all curled and gnarled. You can see where they're reaching up towards the light, especially the Loidophilia and the Bacopa. Loidophilia and Bacopa doing very well right now, and they're starting to take on the shape that you hope that they will. I have added a few shrimp. The shrimp that were available when I ordered the plants, it was a dozen of a shrimp known as a Pinokio shrimp, and I'll tell you more about those coming up in a future Fincast, but they're doing very well. The tank is doing very well. What I want to do, of course, is I want to let the water sit in here for a while so we can see how the softness and the acidity is coming with respect to the substrate, which is supposed to create those conditions. But in all fairness to Seachem, the water's only been in the tank for about a week, and I don't know if that's long enough, but I'll be testing that and reporting that out in the next Fincast regarding this tank. So part 3 coming up will be all about the shrimp. I've told you about the substrate. In this Fincast, we learned about the plants, and then coming up, we'll be looking at everything we need to know about the shrimp that are in this aquarium and keeping freshwater shrimp in a planted aquarium in general. I'm learning way more than I ever knew there was to know about keeping freshwater shrimp, and there's a lot to know there. It's relatively simple, maybe not as simple as keeping fish, however. So that's a look at the plants in this tank in part 2. Part 3 will be about the shrimp. Please click around. There's there's lots for everyone to see here. I do Fincasts on marine topics. I do them on freshwater topics, including the planning tanks. Lots of people checking out what I call my Cichlid Adventures series, and that's a lot of fun if you like cichlids. So please click around on Fincasters. I'm sure you'll find something you like. Until then, I'll see you in the next Fincast.